Hello and welcome to the Green Business Podcast, where we meet exciting climate entrepreneurs. With me today is Andrew Elmack from Plastics for Change, or let's call it PFC. Andrew is from Canada. He came to India as a student and has stayed back. PFC stands for a very simple idea that plastic pollution is big, and if we want to tackle it, we must treat the people who are actually handling plastic waste very well, which means there should be fair wages, health benefits, fair working conditions, and such plastic is called fairly sourced plastic, and which makes PFC very different from other plastic recyclers. And I think this has played out very well because PFC now works with many brands, including the Body Shop, Colgate, Garnier, and many more. So lovely, excited to have you, Andrew. Welcome.
Great to be here, Bharti. Thanks for the opportunity to come to the Green Business Podcast.
So Andrew, one thought that plastic waste can be used to change lives is very, very deep, right? So profound. How old were you when you thought of this, and how has it panned out?
Yeah, I was lucky. I think about 20 years old. I travel. I was doing some backpacking through South Asia. My sister was working in Phnom Penh at the World Fishery Trust. So I went and visited her. That was my first trip to Asia. And got my first got kind of got the bug, so to say. Like, I was just really fascinated looking at like so much plastic everywhere, but also a lot of, at the time, really extreme poverty, right? People just surrounded by plastic waste, and intuitively I was just like, this doesn't make sense. Like, how could there be so much plastic waste everywhere, and yet people are unable to make enough of a livelihood by collecting it to, not be in extreme poverty. So that idea started percolating, and it led me to write an honors thesis in university around this topic of creating an eco-label to represent responsibly sourced recycled plastic and to verify that the plastic was collected from the environment with the right traceability systems in place. And I actually started initially with getting plastic from shoreline cleanups and organizing shoreline cleanups and getting it from the coastal region. And it was a bit futile. Like, it was there, but you're talking about a business model that doesn't really pencil out economically, and then you're only ever like mopping the floor, so to speak. You're never really turning off the tap of the origin of material that's entering the environment. And so as a nice young and naive college graduate, I launched a crowdfunding campaign online, so open source platform called Indiegogo, to create the first fair trade verified recycled plastic. So I was very inspired by the way some agriculture supply chains, like, I don't know if you like, say like Starbucks, you go and it has a little fair trade coffee. So I wanted to bring that same concept to the plastic recycling industry, and I raised around 4,000 Canadian dollars online from friends and family mostly, and got my first ticket to India, and went about trying to figure out how to go making the first fair trade recycled plastic, which turned out to be a little bit harder than I thought. So I was able to work part-time at the Ocean Conservancy and was evaluating business models that could prevent plastic from entering the ocean, and funded the first few staffs here in India. And a big milestone was we were able to get the Body Shop International as our first client. So the Body Shop had started their own community fair trade program in South India back in the 80s. They pioneered this concept. So I was hell-bent on getting them as a client, and it's a whole long story maybe for a follow-up, but 7 trips to their head office later, we launched the first fair trade verified recycled plastic in partnership with the World Fair Trade Organization as the third-party standard for the responsible sourcing practices. So we're still early days. The plastic recycling, the transition to a circular economy is like if it was a novel, it's on chapter 1 or 2. Like it's very early days, and it's a system that, as a plastic recycling startup, we're able to, raise. But fortunately, we've been able to raise some capital and expand. But in all of Asia in 2024, we could only find a total of $35 million that went into plastic and waste management recycling startups. And if you compare that with the size and scope of the hundreds of billions of dollars each year that goes into creating the conventional fossil fuel intensive new plastic, it's a little drop. So of course, like the infrastructure is not in place. And we really have recognized that there's 3 main challenges that we need to address, right? So the first one is that in all of Asia, in general, 1/3 of the waste is not collected or unaccounted for, meaning that it's either dumped or burnt somewhere, or some unsunk landfill, or just no one knows where it's ending, where it's gone. So the collection is very expensive for municipalities, and they need to prioritize so many other things. And also just the combination of urbanization and double-digit consumption growth of plastic means that in a lot of cities, like the total amount of plastic they have to deal with it doubles every 5 years.
Right.
So they're certainly not deploying infrastructure. Like deployment is not doubling every 5 years. It's quite stagnant. So the economics of collection is
doesn't work.
Something that the informal sector has the advantage of. They're not reliant on any taxpayer revenue or subsidies, right? They're doing it because there's intrinsic value in the material, and that people need these livelihoods, and they're basically being freelancers for society, going and collecting all the material. So there's part 1 is the collection, part 2 is the infrastructure spend on how do you add value to this plastic to developing the infrastructure, and then part 3 is the demand generation. So we need to find home for all this plastic and convince the industry to transition away from the fossil fuel intensive plastic to use the plastic that already exists.
Right.
And that's a huge challenge because it costs a little bit more to it's like unscrambling an egg, right? When virgin plastic is made, it's nice in one form. It's all it's very cheap, it's very consistent, it's about pipeline basically of sourcing. And but then the plastic is made in all these products, and the egg is scrambled and spread across the whole countryside, and then recycling is like unscrambling the egg and bringing it all back together. So it costs a little bit more to organize hundreds of crores of waste collectors compared to a pipeline of raw material. And so we're breaking down those 3 challenges by doing exactly that. So supporting the livelihoods of the collection, making sure that the waste collectors have a consistent on-time and full payment, which is a big pain point for them. The second bit is actually doing the infrastructure build, so setting up these aggregation centers where we can add value to the material, and then really aligning with what consumers want, because the brands will do what the consumers want, and consumers want data and third-party verifications of the claims, right? Most consumers don't really trust a claim that a brand just publishes. And that was my whole honors thesis back.
So let me just summarize what I think you do. One is that you collect plastic from this informal workforce, and then you are setting up infrastructure to sort it, clean it, and then you're finding users, which is basically brands who can use it. But then you're also helping consumers understand that this plastic is fairly sourced, right? Ensuring that traceability is there across the chain, and using technology to ensure that the brand's claims are verified. Is that what you do? Is that correct?
That's exactly correct.
And how do you? So the first part of this chain is sourcing plastics from waste pickers. So you individually, like they make a contract with PFC and give you the plastics, and talk to me about the first leg.
Yeah, so with the waste collectors, it's important to kind of think of it like they're kind of like freelancers. There's almost like a gig economy. So people will go and often it's women who wake up early in the morning while their kids are still
Hmm.
sleeping, and they'll go around their neighborhood, maybe a five kilometer sort of radius
Hmm.
where they go and collect it from wherever they can. And then they'll come back and maybe do a different activity during the peak hours of the
Hmm.
day, or different things. But it's a primary income opportunity for so many people. And so when the brilliance of the informal waste economy is that it's so decentralized.
Hmm.
In most emerging economies, there'll be a network of, in India, we say kabadiwalas. In the Philippines, where we've expanded, they're called junk shops or
Hmm.
scrap shops, recicladores. Everywhere is called something different, but it's the same decentralized network
Hmm.
of little mom and pop shops that are, every neighborhood has a little scrap shop where the waste collectors come and can trade the material
Right.
in exchange for the money. So we enabled it's tech driven, where there's an app for of course, the buy sell transactions, but also it's really about enabling the responsible sourcing practices and measuring the progress towards the certification standards. So
Yeah.
the more one of the kabadiwalas is able to adopt those certification standards, the more that we celebrate their victory, and really we've gotten quite good now at taking a completely informal kabadiwala. The first time they do a business transaction with them, they're like, what are all these terms and conditions? Like, they've never heard of any certification standard. They're like, why should I do it? Why do I have to do all this? Like, I'll just sell it to this other guy. And then it's a lot of hard work. So, we have tech is one bit, but we also have like a couple hundred staff spread
Okay.
across the countryside to have those relationships and to build that trust and behavior change, and to celebrate the victories on the social and environmental progress that they're
Okay.
making.
So you help. This is the same kabadiwala that who's there in my neighborhood as well. So you enable those kabadiwalas to adopt fair trade practices, right? And that increases their cost, but they are fine with it because you enable them higher price, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Well, we also found that the waste collectors will want to do business with the scrap shops who are also demonstrating their responsible sourcing standards. So it's kind of like it's also a bit of a marketing strategy for them to have
Okay.
more waste collectors come and deposit.
Okay.
And
Okay.
we've done, every few years we do a living wage study, where in the last one we surveyed 473 informal waste workers, and we
Hmm.
found that the ones that were in our supply chain on average were earning 17% more
Okay.
compared to the baseline.
So kabadiwala has to pay better and more and maybe more promptly. And then the kabadiwala, then you have brands on the other side, right? So this kabadiwala then sends the material to the recycler, who again has to stick to your fair trade practices, and then brands will eventually buy from the recycler, right? Is that how it happens?
Yeah, there's usually another step in the supply chain. So the kabaddi wells are all decentralized, so they
Right.
can't
Yeah.
send it directly to the recyclers because the volumes are too
Okay.
small. So
Okay.
it gets aggregated and
Okay.
segregated in the aggregation
Okay.
center. And then, so it's
Okay.
typically like, you know, a minimum supply chain is waste collector, kabadiwala, aggregator, recycler. And
Yeah.
then the recycler makes the raw material for manufacturing, and then the manufacturer fulfills the brand's contract. You know, different supply
Right.
chains, different goods, right? But that's like kind of the minimum flow. So the purchasing
Okay.
power of the brand, like, I want to highlight, the brand has so much purchasing
Hmm.
power because everyone else in the
Yeah.
supply chain kind of does what the brand wants,
Right.
at least with the manufacturers. And it's so important that consumers, we have to also raise our voices and say, hey, we don't want it to just be okay that 15 million people are in the supply chains and don't have access to human rights.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's huge. And brands listen. Brands, I really, if there's one takeaway, recognize that as a consumer, brands listen to you because you keep them in business, right?
Yeah.
You ultimately you are the most powerful stakeholder in the whole supply
True.
chain, really, when you add it all together.
Yeah.
It's very important that we voice that opinion for the environmental impact, saving immediately just the decision. If you can imagine, if a consumer, you convince one brand to use recycled plastic instead of virgin plastic, even let's say it's 100 tons.
Yeah.
you're saving 300 tons of CO2.
That's
And that's like elephants. How many elephants is that? I don't know. Like a whole big herd of elephants of CO2 you've saved just by
correct.
taking that one action. So don't
Yeah, got it.
underestimate the power of consumer.
Got it, Andrew. But coming back to this, so then you said that after Kabadiwala, there is this aggregation center. So that center is run by Plastics for Change, or that is also another outsourcing partner?
Bit of both. Yeah,
Okay.
we run most of them in-house today, but now we're also doing it through partnerships and helping to enable the responsible sourcing standards through
Okay.
existing entrepreneurs.
And
Yes.
and the brands pay you, and then you distribute the value across the chain, or the brand pays the manufacturer.
Well, brands don't buy plastic typically.
That's
Right?
true.
They'll
They buy
buy
the
the
bottle.
finished.
Yeah, they buy the bottle.
Well, they buy
Yeah.
the finished good, whether
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
bottle or apparel or
or yeah,
automotive or
yeah,
different
yeah.
things. But when they go and have like an RFQ or a request for quotation,
Huh.
they make it a requirement, being like, we want recycled plastic and we want it to come
Right.
from responsible. In the same way the garment sector, like I really want to draw the analogy
Yeah.
to the transformation in the garment sector. Like decades
Okay.
ago, it was commonplace for cut and sew facilities to have child labor, sweatshops, all these things. And the industry
Yeah.
got together and they're like, okay, this is not okay.
Yeah.
And it got in the media and consumers were outraged. And now, most of them go and audit and make sure that the factories have the right working conditions in
Right.
place. And that same transformation now has to just go a little bit down the supply chain. And it's more complex, but that's why Plastics for Change is here to help.
Okay. No, so brand, or who does the brand have a contract with? Do they have it with you, or do they have it with the manufacturer, and you enable all of it? Is that how it
Yeah,
happens?
so it's all done as partnership through the supply chain.
Okay.
But they buy the finished good from the manufacturer typically. New models selling the plastic, and we do
Okay.
sell it through the whole value chain, whether it's selling scrap plastic to recyclers or upwards
Okay.
through the supply chain. But you can think about us like, I don't know if you have like an iCore sticker or like a something on your computer. Same thing. We want it to be. We're positioned as an ingredient brand that stands for responsible sourcing and with the business model of selling the plastic.
Oh, okay. So brand will tell the manufacturer that they want fair trade plastic, and therefore the manufacturer will buy it from you. That's how it happens, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, wonderful. And if you have to scale it, first is how many tons of plastics do you handle so far, and how do you scale this? Like, do you set up? The first step would be to reach out to more and more waste workers, or first step would be to reach out to more and more kabadiwalas. How do you grow this?
Yeah, so when we expand geographically, we start by doing a need assessment and understanding the need of the waste collector communities, and then kind of understanding the network of kabadiwalas, etc. Yeah, we've expanded fairly quickly. I think we've completed our 6th consecutive year, averaging 3x. We just got our H1 numbers in too, and we've done more in H1 than the entire calendar year of 2024. So, but at the same time, we're still like literally a drop in the ocean in terms of getting to those 15 million folks. And of course, we can't do it ourselves. We encourage more people to enter the space and embrace responsible sourcing and make it commonplace.
Yeah, quite amazing that you have been able to make the whole chain comply with make them do the right thing. That's quite amazing, right?
Yeah, we have an amazing team. We've also been, frankly, we've been quite fortunate in terms of our timing. I think launching when we did, it wasn't too early, not too late. We were able to raise some capital the week that oil hit free during COVID. We were able to raise some capital. So it's humbling because there are a lot of plastic recycling companies that die because it's a tough industry right now. It's a premature industry. Regulations are still coming through. So
and brands are willing to pay premium because one is that they recognize that customers want it, and second is regulation is helping because now, as you said, brands have to use recycled plastics as part of regulations, and plus I think the food grade also they have approved the use of recycled plastic, right? That also happened recently. Huh?
Yeah. So usually procurement managers, it like boils their blood if you use the word premium, right? They get very upset if you use that word. But we're positioned to be amazing at customer service, delivering the material on time in full, and helping the brands make the transition to recycled plastic and aligning with their consumer expectations. So we mostly just try to compete in excellent customer service.
And how many tons do you handle currently, and what is the plan looking like for the next maybe 2 years?
Yeah, so if we 23,000 tons last year, we'll hopefully get up to 40,000 tons.
22,000 tons, okay, that's huge.
23,000 tons in the calendar year, and then we hope to get, we're on track to double it this year.
Okay, and how would this be done? Like you would expand to new cities and you would open new centers. Would there be physical like assets need to be created, or you would just use the existing recycling infrastructure?
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of infrastructure build that's required. We have amazing partners through the entire supply chain with a network of over 40 recyclers, certainly within India, but also globally, and manufacturers and different brands that are also. Most of our sales still come just from referrals as our main sales channel.
Right.
Yeah. So we want to just continue to expand this within India. We've also set up shop in the Philippines, a country that has the highest plastic entering the ocean per capita, and we want to same sort of supply chain architecture of a network of cabariwalas. So yeah, hopefully we want to continue to grow, become a household brand where consumers recognize this and are wanting, in the same way that people are looking at the iCore sticker and being like, okay, I trust this computer's going to be okay fast. And we want consumers to look at plastic products and be like, oh, does this have what's the carbon footprint, and is it like exploiting people? And hopefully some of them will start, even if 1 in 1,000 consumers makes a primary purchase decision based on this product attribute, it's highly, highly profitable for brands to use this type of material.
Okay, so you seem to suggest that you will use the existing recycling infrastructure and make them compliant to fair trade practices, right? So what is the hardest part of this business? Like, is it getting the brands, or is it making recyclers understand why you want them to have fair conditions? And they must be dealing with all kinds of plastics, right? Are they exclusive recyclers, or they do fair trade practices for your material and not for the others? How does that work?
Yeah, well, recyclers are just taking the scrap plastic and processing it into flakes or granules.
Okay.
Typically, business as normal, the recyclers will have a network of informal waste traders. They'll call up, and whoever's the cheapest, they'll buy from.
Yeah.
And then usually whoever's the cheapest is also like, taking the most amount of shortcuts through the system. So yeah, it's about working with the existing stakeholders. To answer your question, what's the hardest part? Oh my gosh, it's all very hard. I think that we're just so fortunate with we were able to define this product category and have not only were we the first to achieve the fair trade standard, but more recently we were the first organization to achieve the Social Plus certification standard by ZPL. That's a layer on top of the ocean-bound plastic certification standard by ZPL. So I think kind of pioneering this segment has helped us in terms of like a first mover.
And lastly, Andrew, for you, what are the biggest levers of profitability for you? Like what all do you have to be doing so that this whole thing becomes economically very attractive? Maybe it already is, but if you could throw some light on that.
So the driver of profitability is a lot of our operations. So making sure that the supply chain is running efficiently. So leveraging our technology and all the quality control systems in place to ensure our customer service is amazing. So with the drivers of excellent customer service are getting the material delivered on time in full, with the right quality control systems in place, and then from the supply chains that the brands can trust, the ones that have achieved the certification standards. And I think, the more we excel in the customer service, the more the demand grows, and supply and demand kind of is what drives the overall profitability.
So as you grow in volumes, your key expenses would be manpower and tech, right? So as you grow in volumes, those get covered better and you start becoming profitable. That would be right. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for your time today. It's been lovely talking to you.
Thank you. And shameless plug, we also, of course, would be raising capital, and I know there's some investors in your network. Of course, if you are inspired, please, with a lot of courtesy, tell your brands that you would like to have them use responsibly sourced recycled plastic. And then more importantly, please, my request is also become a little curious about where your waste goes. If you stop by, talk to your kabadiwala, just get curious, and the more you understand the problem, the more you're able to participate in the solution. So thanks again so much for the time and the opportunity to share the story.
Yeah.